my research focused on anticipatory governance within the SADC region, but with a specific focus on disaster risk reduction in a possible post-COVID-19 environment. Now, moving into the future, there's three possibilities that we need to consider. First, the unknown, and then also the unknowables linked to various risks. Trying to dissect this and to understand the possibility of these future scenarios, we can look at how these events would unfold in the post-normal. And there's three possibilities for future risks within the SADC region. And this is based on the work by Alpino and others, which they focus on three types of possibilities, three types of scenarios that we might see unfolding. The first one is what they call black elephant, black swan, and then also the black jellyfish. Now, if we look at those three different aspects, a black elephant is what we would argue to be a highly probable high impact event that is quite likely and that it's also quite predictable. The shock created makes the event seem as if it's unpredictable, yet it is a known. Good examples within the SADC region would be the extreme weather events that we experience on an annual basis. And in particular, I would say Cyclone Idai and Kenneth are two very good examples of possible black elephants. However, in the regions, there's also other black elephants that we need to consider that might be linked to, I think, probably more the gray areas, which could be something like runaway vulnerabilities due to economic performance failure or the rise of inflation. It could be linked to unaddressed inequalities within societies, poor governance, even an increase in food insecurities, more nationalism and isolation that comes from that. It could also be linked to an increase in the welfare state idea, which results in uncontrolled government overspending and obviously unsustainable exploitation of natural resources that then occurs. Secondly, black swans are events that are outliers, and most of the time it's beyond our observation. The unknown unknowns. These are low probability, high impact events, which seem to come out of the blue. And they can easily be miscalculated and also totally underestimated. Black swan events within the SADC region, I think one of the most prominent ones could be the Somalia tectonic plate, which causes earthquakes within Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, and some neighboring states. And it could also be something totally out of the blue, like, for instance, threats from outer space, debris, etc. However, closer to home, it could even be unexpected urban and population growth, which is unprecedented in nature. The third possibility, called black jellyfish, are events that could become post-normal, but it escalates quite rapidly and sometimes even simultaneously. These events are perceived to be normal, but can have a significant high impact. An example could be the xenophobia attacks that we had within South Africa, which could have easily escalated into possibility of a regional war, or what we currently see in terms of terrorist insurgency within Mozambique that can easily lead to instability in neighboring states. In terms of climate change, we could also experience certain climate-induced tipping points, which could have a significant impact on our resource use. COVID-19 can typically be described as a black jellyfish. However, we had the experience of Ebola within Africa, which some could argue would rather make it a black elephant, because its possibility was definitely known. The research makes certain recommendations in terms of anticipatory governance, which we need as an innovative method to address currently linked and also legacy systems. The current drive towards the integration of disaster risk reduction, climate change, sustainable development, urban development, and humanitarian actions provides an ideal opportunity to bring anticipatory governance into the fold. Although there are systemic innovations currently within SADC, it is clear that feedback loops need to be created. These are not enough and they need to be addressed. We need to adequately look at and address networking opportunities and better collaboration between member states, but not only on the political level. much more on the technical level. And there should be a realization that anticipatory governance should be inculcated and requires a change in the thought process. An example that I can cite here is the current SADC resilience framework, which was signed in early 2020, which is one of those first new generation policies that allows for a bit more of anticipatory governance to find its footing within the Secretariat. However, anticipatory governance will not happen spontaneously within bureaucratic systems. The legacy systems are not set up currently for anticipatory governance, and these needs to be addressed. There needs to be much more decentralized decision-making, a devolution of power, and also supportive legal mandates. There needs to be a much deeper understanding of what anticipatory governance means and to build trust in decision-making. Because at the end of the day, it is a decentralized method of decision-making built on trust. And lastly, capacity development and the integration of anticipatory governance into existing curriculum or capacity building initiatives are crucial to get the message over and to build a new cadre of managers known or in the know of what anticipatory governance is, and that can actively implement that within the region. So within the SADC region, it is quite crucial and important to also understand how complexity within systems plays a role in terms of anticipatory governance. One of the key features of anticipatory governance is to address legacy systems, but this can't be done until such point that we understand how these various systems are linked and how the complexity within these systems play out. So in order to do that, it's important to also look at it from a resilience lens and a resilience perspective, because resilience has become the pivot point around which many of the disaster risk and sustainable development initiatives can be linked. Therefore, if we understand the characteristics of resilience and a resilient system, we can therefore make the transition to how we can incorporate anticipatory governance within those systems, which in turn leads to better decision-making and addressing the possibility of future risks. In terms of South Africa as a case study, it is clear that South Africa were able to address certain elements of anticipatory governance through the creation of feedback loops linked to the COVID-19 pandemic. From the start, the government focused on decent communication with citizens, and they created certain feedback loops within the systems, and they harnessed certain elements of the fourth industrial revolution to reach people and to communicate this to the wider community. I think the risk-adjusted strategy is also a good example of how systems thinking came to the fore. And they were also forced to work across different ministries and across different sectors. And this allowed for a bit of a more holistic and integrated approach that the government followed. The COVID-19 certainly highlighted the need for multi-risk assessment and the more unified responses and better incident command systems linked to the bigger system of governance. So within South Africa, that is one good example of how anticipatory governance had a fair start so far, but I believe there's much more to be done.